Okay, Warren Brooks is a full-time attorney. He's a father of two and the owner of Elevate Nutrition and Coaching. And like us, he's on a mission to help other people improve their lives by leading by example. So welcome to the podcast, Warren.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So your journey in health and fitness, it has a lot of things in common, I think, with Blakely and I's. But before we kind of get into that side of everything, tell us a little bit about your career as an attorney and kind of what led you down that path.
Okay. So when I went to undergrad, originally I wanted to be a sports medicine type doctor, an orthopedist. And I chose a college specifically for that because they were, postgraduate, they were good admission rates and stuff like that. And I also got a chance to play football there as well. About halfway through, I think it was my sophomore year, I really wasn't enjoying the process of it. I was like, I don't think I will be happy with the outcome once I get there. So I completely switched to a criminal justice major and thought law school might be an option, wasn't really sure. And then there was a professor there who, as part of that, said, law school is also an option. And we had to do an internship our senior year. So I did an internship with the Floyd County District Attorney's Office there in Rome, Georgia. And I got there and I was able to see how they interacted with victims, how they dealt with stuff in court. And I was like, I think this is what I want to do. And when I moved back home between undergrad and law school, I did another internship in Bibb County DA's office in Macon. And I really enjoyed that as well. And that kind of solidified it. I started studying for the LSAT to the test for law school, getting into law school, took it, got accepted to 2 law schools, and it was either Birmingham or Virginia. So I decided to stay a little bit closer to home in Birmingham. I was engaged at the time and started working there, did an externship with the DA's office and really enjoyed it, applied after that. And that's all I've ever known as being in a DA's office. So I've been there about 3 years now.
What did your family say when you told them you didn't want to become a doctor anymore?
I was surprised. So my parents have always supported me in anything I've ever, done in my life, whether that be deciding to do something else or change of direction. And they really were supportive. I don't think it was a really shock to them. They could tell I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. And once I got into law school, I really didn't enjoy what I was doing because it was law school. But once I got to becoming an attorney, it just solidified it in the work I got to do, working with victims, working on cases, being in the courtroom, because that's what I think being an attorney is all about, being in the courtroom. I didn't want to be stuck behind a desk. I wanted to be working with people and trying to have an impact on their lives. So they were very supportive of that.
It's funny, you just reminded me of a conversation you and I had through Instagram one time. I think I was encouraging you to get on your Instagram story and talk to the camera more. And you said something about, or maybe this was about doing the podcast, I don't remember, but how you weren't really that comfortable doing that. But then your job is to get in front of people in court every day and speak.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Like, I remember when I first started doing it, I was like, this is uncomfortable. Like, I'm talking to a camera, but I'd stand up and talk to 12 strangers in a jury trial, and you would think that would be I would be a lot more nervous for that, but I don't know. I feel in my element when I'm doing that, as opposed to looking at a screen and who knows who's watching kind of thing.
Right. No, I get it. So I don't think I knew that you played football. So you played in college?
I did. I played for 4 years at a really small school. It was a Shorter University in Rome, Georgia. They were NAIA when I first started, but we transitioned to NCAA Division II after my sophomore year. And I was going to play a 5th year, but I decided to just play a 4th year, I was on schedule to graduate in 2014, and I knew I wanted to go to law school. So I kind of came to terms with, okay, this is my last year. Had a lot of fun with it. It's very hard. You know, it's not for everyone. You know, it's fun in high school. You get to hang out with your buddies, but college, you've got meetings, you've got film study, early mornings, practices, workouts, all while being a full-time student. So it's a lot, but it was really rewarding from that aspect of teaching me how to, work hard and balance a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, how did the discipline of going through high school and college athletics, probably especially college athletics, how is that kind of translated into having discipline in your own life with your own fitness and nutrition?
I think it flowed naturally. Like I've always been used to, doing workouts and being active. So once I got done with college, I was like, well, like I'm going to keep doing something. I don't know what it is. And I remember I moved back home I graduated in May of 2014. And I think the weekend I got home or the next week, I started at a CrossFit gym. And I'd never done CrossFit before. I'd done like some main site stuff at our gym on campus, but I'd seen it, everybody knows Rich Froning. And I'd seen him and seen some of the YouTube videos and guys like that, the OGs from back in the day. And I was like, I love Olympic lifting, so I'm gonna try this out. And so I just started going 5 days a week, and it flowed naturally with my work during that time. I was studying at the library. I'd work out at 6 a.m., shower. I'd go study from, I'd go study from like 8 to 12, and then I'd go work from 12 to 8. And I did that just on repeat because I was used to it.
Yeah, that's when you were in college, you were kind of on their schedule, but then you kept your own schedule, but stuck with it on your own time after college. So yeah, that's a familiar story of kind of introduction to I guess, did you do barbell training in football? I assume you did a lot of strength training, at least, if not, cleans and snatches. You were squatting and deadlifting.
Yeah, we did a lot of power cleans, a lot of power snatches. We didn't do a lot of full cleans or snatches. I learned how to do them, so I could do the full cleans and full snatches. Also, one of my roommates my freshman year, he was like junior nationals, weightlifting and stuff like that. So he taught me some stuff. But yeah, we did back squats, a lot of stuff like that to build, explosive power for the sport that we played. And that's how
it sounds like the introduction to CrossFit was really the thing that made it stick for you, though.
Yeah, because when I got in there, like when I first got into a CrossFit gym, I remember we had a clean and jerk one day, and there were guys that had been doing CrossFit for years, and I walked in and I could clean 295 or 300, on my first day, and
wow.
And I was doing it in some like $30 tennis shoes that I got off the clearance rack, just because I had that foundation of power and strength from football that just carried over. And there was a learning curve with like the kipping. I could not kip, like right when I first started, stuff like that. But I really enjoyed the process and trying to get better at something, and really enjoyed it moving forward.
Yeah, you do a really good job of documenting your workouts in your own personal Instagram story. I don't think you do it as much on your business's page, but you kind of have a similar approach to Blakely and I, from what I can tell, where we see you doing some of the Olympic lifts, we see you strength training, and also doing some bodybuilding in there. How's your training evolved as you've gotten out of college and are a little bit older now, or has it?
It definitely has changed. When I first started doing CrossFit, I would go 5 days a week, Metcons every day, and I could handle it pretty well. I've learned as I'm getting older and, having kids, more stress in my life, to dial back and manage that intensity. I rarely do Metcons back to back, day to day. Like sometimes on Mondays I'll do strength and a Metcon, and the next day I'll do strength and some skill work, or just to kind of even it out a little bit, because I know I'm working towards the long game, not, short term. Yeah, I could probably handle that workout right now, but I don't want to be like hurting, towards the weekend and stuff like that. I want to be able to feel good, the rest of the week. So yeah, kind of like
Yeah.
you guys, dabbling in kind of a little bit of everything.
And just for anybody listening to this that doesn't know, Metcon is, I mean, you find it in a lot of different contexts, but it really is just, it stands for metabolic conditioning. It's those 3 rounds for time workout, or 15 minutes, as many rounds as possible, where you're pushing intensity in a cardiovascular setting. That's what Warren's talking about there. And we follow a similar strategy, like depending on what our goal is at the time of year, we're doing more or less of that, but we're never doing it 5-6 days a week in a row like we used to when we were in our early 30s.
Yeah.
And that seems to work for most people, just for general physical fitness, without ending up feeling beat up or tearing up their shoulders or hips or anything like that. So you mentioned balancing life and stuff like that. So let's get into that, because we have several attorney clients. We actually have a client who's a nurse manager who's transitioning to becoming an attorney, or I'm not sure if she's even going to practice, but she's going through the education and testing of it. And attorneys are extremely busy people. I mean, sometimes just burning the midnight oil, depending on what kind of law they're practicing. So how can busy people like you, and like everybody listening to this who's like nodding their head, yeah, I'm busy too, how can we learn to balance our own health with that busyness of life, our jobs, our families, all that stuff? How do you do it, and how do you help your clients do it?
Honestly, it takes a lot of work. People think it's like this template that you can provide to any person, and it works, but it depends on the person. Everybody leads a different life. They have different stressors. They have different things going on, different times that they're in the office and stuff like that. But I think just putting in a little bit of preparation is key to it. And a little bit of preparation goes a long way. And instilling those little bitty habits day after day really helps that snowball effect of being consistent day to day, week to week, month to month, and eventually to year, where you are consistent for the long haul. And it takes time to get there, and it's as easy as making, preparing one meal per day. I mean, that takes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what you make. And you can, that way, you're getting something good in your body. It's going to help you, fuel you for the work that you're about to do, especially as an attorney. There's so much in our work that is out of our control. We could have, a hearing that we think is going to last 30 minutes that lasts an hour. We could have a docket that runs through lunchtime, and you have to prepare for that.
Dude, that's absolutely clutch. And that's something I say, especially to new clients, a lot, but it comes up every week during somebody's check-in. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but anybody can take this away and apply it in their own life. And I put this on clients' calendars when they're coaching with us, but take some deliberate time every day. We're talking about nutrition here, and either write it down or make a note in your phone, just give it some thought and just think, what am I going to eat tomorrow? That extra 5 little minutes of thinking about it, or even 2 or 3 minutes, just thinking about it, automatically it puts something on your radar to let you know what situations are going to come up that you're going to be unprepared for. And a lot of these things that we think we're unprepared for, these are things that just keep coming up over and over again. So it's not that they're surprises that catch us off guard. They're just things that we never actually took the time to think about. So like what you're talking about, knowing you have a hearing that might spill over into lunchtime, throwing some extra snacks into your bag to bring with you. That is the kind of stuff that it's this boring little stuff that really leads to long-term consistency and results. So we're recording this on a Friday, and the weekends are definitely a time where a lot of people struggle to be consistent. How do you think about the weekends, and how do you guide your clients to think about the weekends that have struggled with that on track, off track mentality?
I tell a lot of my clients, and this is something I would tell myself, and something that I use is just to be mindful. You don't necessarily have to track everything to a T, or track some of it and track, you know, some of the other, not track some of the other stuff you eat, but just be mindful of what you're eating. Like, if you're going into a situation where there might be less nutrient dense food, then prepare for that. Make a meal that's more nutrient dense, for breakfast. And then if you're going to, say you're going to brunch with some people and there's going to be mimosas and all sorts of good, carb loaded food and stuff like that, prepare for that and enjoy those in the moment and be mindful of what you're eating. Because, you can have a mimosa and whatever you're having for brunch and still work towards your goals. And that's the thing, is people think it's a all or nothing approach. And that's not it at all. You can be flexible and enjoy time with your family, friends, do the things you like to do, and still work towards your goals. There's one client in particular that I've worked with for about 6 months, and she's finally got that mindset of, I did a check-in last night for her, and she had went to they did a 5K Turkey Day run that they do every year. And after, her mom always makes a potluck, there's mimosas. She's like, I had a mimosa, I enjoyed the food, and I didn't stress about it. She said in past years leading up to it, I would stress about it. And oh my gosh, this is going to wreck my progress and all this stuff, and get those negative thoughts in her head. But now she's like, it's just food, and I got to enjoy it.
There's nothing worse than having foods that you consider off limit and then feeling guilty about it, but then also not actually enjoying it in the moment. You've lost twice in that scenario. Own your decision, understand the consequences of it, go into it with a plan, and then actually enjoy the moment, and then get back to your normal life.
Yeah.
Easy said, not always easily done though.
That's-
I think I read on your webpage or somewhere that you hired your own first person to nutrition coach you back in 2018. And I'm sure that was a interesting experience to go through for the first time. How has your mindset around nutrition changed, prior to that and even since then?
So prior to that, I thought certain foods were off limits. I stopped eating pizza, didn't have ice cream as much. I thought fat would make you fat. I thought eating too much carbs were bad. And I used to do some very intense volume with a bunch of guys at the CrossFit gym I was with in law school. And I just felt awful all the time. And my wife would be like, why are you hurting all the time? And all you do is complain about how bad you hurt and how bad you feel. Why do you do this? And, once I started working with my coach, Zach Anderson, I was able to realize that I was super underfueled and overtraining. And those things just don't work together. And once I started eating more, and I was actually losing weight, and this was during the time I was studying for the bar exam. So I started working with a coach the day I started studying for the bar exam, the biggest exam of my life. And I would go work out 6 a.m. I'd get done, shower. I was doing street parking at the time. Get in, get out, shower, go to school, do a lecture from 8 to 12, and then study from about 12 to 5 or 6. And I was losing weight. I was lean. I was the best shape I'd ever been in my life. And I was eating a lot more food. And my energy levels were through the roof. I was I have so much energy. I feel fueled to study all day, every day, for the next 2 months. Mm-hmm. And so it really showed that the power that food has and what it can do for you if you have it in the proper proportions.
Yeah.
and that foods don't have to be off limits, and you can enjoy those foods while still working towards your goals.
Yeah. You can't really coach somebody on their nutrition without getting into that whole mindset side of things for sure, because of the diet
Yeah,
mentality and the off limit, way we categorize food as good and bad. And I think a lot of times, like from stuff I see on social media, some people even push it a little bit too far to the extreme, where they make it sound like you can make progress with your health and fitness eating whatever you want in whatever quantity you want. And that's not the message that a good
yeah,
nutrition coach gives you. They help you kind of reframe your mindset about, like you mentioned, what foods are more nutritious and which foods are less nutritious, and how do we dial the frequency and the volume of those less nutritious foods into your diet so they're not restricted, but not so much that they're derailing your progress. So, does that make sense? I'm sure you
yeah.
run into that same scenario.
It's that balance, like, like I talked about earlier, is finding that give and take of, oh, I'm gonna do, have a better, more nutritious meal for breakfast, and then I'm gonna balance that out with something I really want that maybe isn't as nutritious, and you can still work towards your goals. But I remember I was listening to some podcast a while back when I was first like geeking out over all this nutrition stuff. When I was working with Zach, and he was like, I can lose weight eating whatever I want, kind of like you said, but that's going to wreck my insides. Like my gut health and how I feel, it's not going to be good. And that's because you're not getting those nutrients, those vitamins and minerals that are essential for your bodily functions, your brain function, um, for, you to live your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
So, you could, like you said, that, eating whatever and stuff like that, yeah, you can work toward your goals, but it's not going to be something that's going to last for the long haul.
Yeah, when kind of bodybuilders were the ones that pioneered, trailblazed through the macro tracking forest, learning that, the priorities for changing your body composition are the total calories that you eat because of energy balance, and then how your body changes as you lose or gain weight gets manipulated by your training and the macronutrient breakdown. So they figured out, we know about how many calories are in each gram of protein, carbs, and fat. If we eat about the right amount of these things, it all adds up to the right number of calories and we see progress. And the needle swung too far towards the flexibility side of things with the if it fits your macros approach, like
Yeah.
playing the food Tetris game. And then there's the other side of the equation, which is just like just intuitive eating, where just eat whatever your body craves at the moment, and that's the best way to make progress. I don't even know how that makes sense, but that's
Yeah.
out there. But really the middle ground here is like you're talking about, like having the flexibility, if you're assuming you're tracking macros, to fit the foods that you would like to eat within those calories, making sure that you hit the big rocks of nutrition. Like, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating 3 to 5 servings of vegetables per day? And then still having that food Tetris flexibility that the bodybuilders found back in the day, made famous with Pop-Tarts, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And it's funny that you mentioned the intuitive eating, because I find myself doing that a lot more now than tracking my macros. Like this whole week, I don't think I've logged one thing into my fitness pal. And I'm a person who likes structure. Like I like tracking my macros and putting stuff in and everything like that. But I've done it for so long that I can weigh and measure and have an idea of what it's going to be like without that intuitive eating approach where it's like, I'll just, eat like a 5-year-old at a birthday party and like eat, everything because, oh, I'm craving this cake, like kind of thing.
Yeah. You have to pay your dues to graduate to intuitive eating once you reach your goal. And it's usually a transition process is most helpful for people to kind of wean themselves off of logging food once they get to the point where they no longer want or need to do it. That's the approach that we'll take with clients most of the time. But yeah, you're right. Like you should be able to, it's kind of funny. You start, or this is the approach I'll take with most clients. We'll start with something very basic as far as learning what portions look like. And then we'll slowly get more detailed to where we're actually tracking individual, macronutrients in MyFitnessPal. And then as we reach our goal, we transition back to the basics to release them of the tediousness of the tracking if they don't like doing it. So you kind of come full circle from the basics to specific back to the basics if you do it right.
And I mean, that's kind of like fitness as well. I think I know, I think it was Glassman that mentioned it with CrossFit when he first started. It was like learn and play new sports and then get back around to the basics again once you've mastered everything. And once you circle back to those basics, you don't ever want to be this expert at all these movements and then not focus on the basics as well. It's kind of like, a football team, for example. They're not going to go through a practice without doing the fundamentals, in December when they were doing it in September. They're not just going to stop doing that. They go through the fundamentals. I'm in Alabama. Everybody knows who Nick Saban is in Alabama.
Trust the process.
And I can assure you that those players over in Tuscaloosa going through the basics, they're going through those fundamentals. And it seems tedious, but when you trust that process and really hone in and focus on it, those basics, just those little fundamental things, it adds up. And that's what people see, 3-6 months, a year later is, wow, all this work, these little fundamental things added up over time. And this is the progress where I'm at now.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard that expression that discipline equals freedom. And you could really just say discipline with the basics of anything, fitness or nutrition, or a lot of things in life, kind of buys you the freedom on the outskirts of the basics. But if you're not consistent at all with the basics, then you have no basis of consistency to give you that freedom around the fringes.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What is something that surprised you going from being coached on your nutrition to coaching other people on their nutrition? Just the occupation itself. You're like, oh, I didn't realize this was part of the job.
Trying to figure out what works best for each person, probably. Everybody has a different approach and there's a learning curve to it. I guess I didn't think about that aspect. Some people have never tracked their macros before, and some people have never really thought about their nutrition in that sense of how much am I really eating. So getting them around that learning curve, it is taking some time to evolve, I guess, my methods of addressing that. But it's been fun too, because getting people to see that, I'll have check-ins where they're like, there were a bunch of donuts in the break room and I had one and I enjoyed it. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, you can still work toward your goals and you had a donut and you didn't feel guilty about it. Like, that's great. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
But it has been challenging at times to figure out, the best way to address each individual client and how they learn as well.
Mm-hmm. Everybody likes to be coached a little bit differently. And it's like you need to have this giant toolbox full of tools that might fit the job that you're presented with that particular client. And you're probably going to need a different tool from week to week to week, even with the same client. So yeah, the more you do it, the more your toolbox will grow for sure.
Yeah.
So we're talking about working with clients. Let's talk a little bit about just serving others in general and living a life based on serving other people. What does that expression, living a life of service, kind of mean to you?
It means putting myself before other people. And, we as humans are selfish people, and we we're always looking out for number one. And I like to think of it, when I was in college, we had a coach that he preached about relationships and being a part of something bigger than yourself. And he used to always tell us, when you get in that huddle with those 10 other guys, how you feel about them and they feel about you has a tremendous impact on how you perform together. And, my whole goal and everything that I do is to impact other people and try to have a meaningful impact on them in whatever way I can, whether it's serving them in the courtroom or teaching them about their nutrition and helping them lead healthier lives. That's what I try to do every day, in any way that I can, even if it's in a small way or a large way. And sometimes I may not realize that I'm even doing it, but that's something I strive for every day.
How have you seen that have an impact on your family and on your kids and your larger family?
Um, I think they share that as well. Our daughter Bella, she's 4 and she loves other kids and she loves her little brother who's 1, and she's always trying to help him out, and she's starting to pick up on things that my wife and I do, and she sees how we act, and she acts in a similar way, and so it's really cool to see her mind working on making these thoughtful decisions for other people around her. So that's really fun to see.
That's awesome. I know I've noticed in your Instagram stories that a lot of times you'll screenshot the Bible studies that you're going through. What role does your faith play in your everyday life and just in the way that you approach everything from your career to the way that you interact with your clients and friends and family?
For me, it's always been something very important in my life. I mean, it's the number one thing I think about when making my decisions with anything in my life. I grew up going to Catholic church, going to Catholic schools all the way through, I guess, 18, so high school, and then went to a faith-based school in college as well. And actually, law school was a faith-based school as well. It was, I think it was Baptist affiliated. I think is what Sanford is. But it's always been something I fall back on, as my faith. And knowing that we are here, like I said, for a bigger purpose, something bigger than ourselves. And I try to think about that in everything that I do to try to make this world a better place. Because we're only here for a short time. My belief is that, we're destined for eternity with Jesus Christ one day. And, this is a broken world that we live in. And if we can make it just a little bit better, I think we should strive to do that and try to be a reflection of what Jesus was like. He served others. He sought out people that were different from him. And that's something I try to do every day, is seek out those who I may not understand and I may disagree with or have a different opinion. But that's something, I try to embody my life to be more like him in my walk through this life. And hopefully through that, make an impact on someone along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great of you that you don't hide that about yourself. And we try to do the same. And I think like one thing I try to bring up with clients sometimes that are struggling is they feel like they're the only one that's struggling with the things that they're having trouble with, whether it's, something in their personal life or something to do with their willpower around food, something like that. They feel like they're the only one, and they feel like, why is this so hard? I should be able to do this. I should be able to be better. And often, like, I bring up to them, like, we're all broken people for those reasons that you just said. We're all, since the garden, we're flawed people. And that's the reason that this is so hard. It's supposed to be hard because we don't have the strength to do all this stuff on our own. So go into everything in your life with the expectation that you need help. Whether it's relying on your friends or relying on your faith in God, it's okay that it's hard. That's not a reason to give up. It's a reason to celebrate that you're going to get through it because you don't have to do it on your own.
Exactly. And one thing I preach to a lot of my clients is to show themselves some grace. That's something I struggle with myself. I have high expectations for myself. I always have. And so that's something I've learned to try to show myself more of, is that, things aren't always going to be perfect, even though I may like them to be that way, or I expect them to turn out a certain way. That's not always going to be the case. And I try to empathize with them that, it's okay. I was speaking to a family member. My wife's grandfather recently died, and one of the family members that was close to him said, I've really been, she was talking to me about nutrition while we were there. And she was like, I've really been just struggling with, eating everything in sight. And I looked at her and I said, that's okay. And you could see her tear up, and she was, I think, surprised at my answer, because it is okay. You're going through a tough time. It's okay to be vulnerable and show yourself some grace when maybe you're not making the best decisions. But that happens. It happens to all of us. And something that we can all relate to, because, all of us, even, all these people you see online that look like they've got it figured out, they struggle too every single day.
Yeah, totally. I think that's something special about the coaching relationship, is just kind of creating that safe place, like your relative, to be able to say, I'm struggling. We don't operate like that in our regular life. When was the last time somebody walked up to you and when they said, hey, how are you doing? You said anything other than, I'm doing good. But we're
Yeah,
not all
exactly.
doing good inside.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I mean,
we get
go
a
ahead.
chance as a coach to create that safe space to be honest and vulnerable about the things that we're trying to work with that person. And a lot of times, even if we're working somebody in just a training capacity, we know when there's something personal going on in their life because we've created that safe space to be open with people.
Yeah, and going back to my work as an attorney, my first assignment when I worked transition from family court to downtown was in a district court where we dealt with predominantly domestic violence cases. And so I spoke to a lot of victims of those type of crimes. And you talk about a vulnerable person. I mean, that's almost as vulnerable as they come. And learning to talk to them as a person and not as a victim was something that I learned throughout that process. And a lot of them would open up and be more willing to, talk with me about what happened and, about their situation, and to know that I wasn't judging them. I wasn't looking down on them, that I was just trying to relate to them and listen to them. And sometimes that's all they wanted, was somebody to listen to,
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, this is some good stuff. Do you have any reading recommendations? Are you a reader?
I used to be really good about it, and I haven't recently.
If
Trying to
not,
think.
it's okay. Sometimes I'll find some of the best suggestions from other people, so that's why I always like to ask.
Yeah, but one thing I do read religiously, like you mentioned earlier, is the devotionals I do every morning. Those are just devotionals by Faith RX. You can subscribe to them. They'll send you an email with the daily devotional. It's got a reading, the devotion about that reading, and then a prayer. And that's how I start pretty much every day. Gets me in that mindset of, this is what the day's about. This is what I need to focus on and go about my day.
Yeah, that's a great way to start the day. It's called Faith RX.
Yeah. And
Is that
actually,
an app on your?
no, it's I think it's through their organization. They have it on their website. You can subscribe to it. They'll shoot you an email. with the daily workout. I think at like 5 a.m. every day. So one book I have read recently, uh, more about fitness, is Knee Ability Zero. So have you seen
Hmm.
the knees over toes guy and all the hype about all that?
I know that there's a lot of argument about that, but I didn't know there was a whole page dedicated to it.
Yeah, there's a guy who talked about like injuries with knees, and I've struggled with that myself with you know, football, banging on my knees and hips and stuff. And I started reading into some of that, just a different type of training methodology. And I've incorporated some of that stuff as well. And that's been fun to do. But
Okay, cool.
not really. I mean, it's more of a workout routine, but it is a book. I've
Yeah.
always tried to see, you know, read different stuff and different methodologies just to figure out what they're about and how it kind of correlates with everything else.
Yeah, sure. What would you say is the main thing that kind of keeps you motivated to head out to that garage gym that you're in right now, week after week? A lot of people struggle with motivation. I'm assuming you just have superhuman motivation for, having done this for so long, right?
Yeah, one of it is just the habit of doing it. When I was in college for summer weight training, I would always go home. I worked as a lifeguard at a country club, and I didn't have anybody to work out with. I would go to our high school at 8 a.m. I'd do my workouts by myself. Sometimes, maybe one day a week, I'd have one of my buddies from high school that would want to come and join, but it wasn't like a consistent thing. And I had to do it. It was 4 or 5 days a week, and I just made it happen. I just, and I, and I love training. Like ever since I was in high school, like I love the feeling you get from training and putting in that hard work and seeing it pay off, on the field or whatever, your goal is. And I just love putting in that hard work every day. It's fun to me, just that grind every single day.
Yeah.
Um, as I get older, I have to dial my ego back a little bit, and realize I'm getting older and I can't do it like I used to, but it's still fun. And also to, the motivation is my family, upstairs. They push me to be better every single day, especially my wife. You know, she's always been, there for me through everything. Um, Law school, she's probably the reason I didn't quit law school, because there were a lot of conversations over the phone. I can't do this, and she's like, "Yes, you can." So, and my kids too. I want to show them what it looks like to work hard and put work ethic in when nobody's looking. You can still put in hard work and show them what that looks like. My daughter comes down here probably every morning when I'm finishing up my workout, and she goes, "Daddy," and I'm like, "Hey, babe," I'm out of breath. And it's like, "Are you working out?" I said, "Yep, I'm working out, babe." Just trying to catch my breath. But she gets to see that, and so I'm glad it normalizes it for my family and my kids to see that this is normal. Working out and taking care of yourself is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And honestly, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. And so to do that segues into getting out there and doing what you need to do to make an impact for others.
Yeah. I think to sum that up, it's you find enjoyment in the process of doing it, which is key to long-term consistency. And you just do it. You don't decide, you don't feel like it today, or I don't feel like, eating a healthy meal today. You just do it because that's who you are. And you want to set that example for your family and your friends and your clients and all that.
It's not always easy. That's the thing. Some days I'll come down here, and I'm like, well, I'm here and I'm by myself. But, that other side of me is like, it's going to make me better. You know, I know that every time I come down here, even on those hard days, it'll make those, that result better. There are going to be days when I'm going to be challenged and I have a decision to make, and, I could either fold or I could rise against that adversity that I'm faced with and push through. And that's what you have to do in life.
Yep. Well, I'm dying to know, can you still clean 295 pounds?
I actually PR'd my clean for the first time in like 5 years. Like, it was a few months ago. I was doing a replica of one of the games workouts where they did the run and the clean this last year, but I did it with a bike because it was like pouring rain outside. I hit 310, and my buddy was like, "You should have put on 3 wheels," and I was like, "I'm happy with 2 pounds at 29 years old." So I couldn't walk for like the next day, but yeah,
That's impressive.
I could probably hit 275 if I wanted to, but I'm enjoying the process of doing the percentages. I do a lot of the Bergener strength stuff from Mayhem Athlete, and I enjoy that a lot. So I really like just hitting good positions and making sure my form's good.
Do you have a video of that 310 that we can post when we share this episode?
Oh yeah, I got it. I still got it. I was actually going making space on my phone, all the videos, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, can't delete that one."
Cool, man. Well, is there anything else you want to bring up before we wrap up? I think we've just hit on some really important stuff today.
I think that's about it. If anybody wants to find me on any social media, it's at WBrooks8 and at Elevate Nutrition and Coaching. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about health and fitness, or dealing with navigating your health and wellness as a busy professional, or even as a parent. It's tough, but we can all do it.
I'll definitely put links to both of those in the notes for this episode too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on here. When I found you guys, I could tell, like-minded people, and y'all seem like y'all are making a really big impact on a lot of people through, your nutrition coaching, the fitness coaching, and stuff y'all do too.
We're trying just like you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Warren. Y'all go check out his stuff on Instagram. Definitely give him a follow, and we'll catch you guys next episode.